Happy New Year's, brothers and sisters. Today, in my first podcast of 2025, I'm going to talk about the 3 levels of change that you must know if you want to be successful long term. And I also want to give you 2 of the best pieces of advice that I give clients. My name is Craig Pera. I'm the founder of the Mindful Habit System. And in 7 days from now, the Mindful Habit System is 30, and I am so proud of what Michelle and I created. It is a great honor and a great privilege to be supporting you on this journey, and I hope you get value. Let's jump right in. So, there are 3 levels of change, and I want to direct your attention to the book Atomic Habits. I'm going to include a link down below. If you do not have Atomic Habits, you must read Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits is mandatory. Atomic Habits is mandatory reading for my clients, and it should be mandatory reading for you. The author is James Clear. We are habit machines. Everything that we do is a train condition response. You getting defensive, shutting down, turning to porn, all train conditioned responses. Lying, train conditioned response. All of it. And I knew, I've been in recovery 20 years at my low point, and I knew so little about habits. I started with the book Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which is awesome. You should check that out too. But let's get into Atomic Habits. According to Atomic Habits and author James Clear, there are 3 levels of change: outcome change, process change, and identity change. Let's talk about each one to give you an understanding of what you need to do if you want to be successful long term. Process change, outcome change. Let's start with outcome change, the first layer of change. An example of outcome change is I am sober. I'm no longer doing the thing. Now, in outcome change, I'm probably white knuckling it, holding on for dear life, because all I'm doing in outcome change is not doing the thing. And for anybody who has been following this podcast, you know the golden rule of behavior modification. What is it? Say it with me. To break a habit, you have to make the right habits that meets the right needs. Outcome change is not enough. In fact, where I sit almost 13 years helping people professionally, sobriety is 10% of the solution. The next level of change is definitely a step in the right direction, but not the ultimate level of change. The next level of change is called process change. Process change means you are doing something different, right? Break a habit, make a habit. You've got your blocking software on, you're exercising, you're using distress tolerance skills to better emotionally regulate, and that's great. That's awesome, but it is not enough. You have to do more, and that's that deepest level of change, which not only am I going to tell you about, but I'm going to give you some very specific tips on how to get there. The deepest level of change is called identity change. An example of identity change is I don't lie to my wife. I am a man of integrity. No. I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore, just like I don't put high fructose corn syrup in my body. I take care of my body. I minimize processed foods and lower sugar intake. And we got a podcast coming up on that, man, because there's a whole bunch of great research on the impact of processed foods and excess sugar on mood. But we're going to talk about that at another day. Identity change is who you are. I take care of myself. I prioritize my sexual health, my mental health, my physical health, right? Anytime after the I am, it better be something positive. And if you're saying, hey, I'm a sex addict, that's a celebration, right? If you go to meetings, that's fine, but be mindful of the negative anchoring impact of that identity, right? For some people, identifying as a sex addict long-term actually precludes them from addressing the deeper underlying issues. And for some people, anchoring to the identity of I am a sex addict is empowering. That works for them. For others, anchoring to that negative identity actually keeps you stuck focusing on the wrong things, because to break a habit, you have to make the right habit that meets the right needs. Identity change is who you are. I am a good person. I am a man of integrity. I have self-worth. I learn from my mistakes. When I fall down, I get back up. I'm honest. Those are examples of identity change. And identity change is wicked hard to create, as we like to say in Rhode Island, where I grew up. And I want to give you 2 specific tips that will help you create identity change. And these are the 2 critically important pieces of advice. One is easier to implement than the other. We'll start the one that's easier to implement. And that piece of advice that I love to give. Now, mind you, I want to share with you some of my favorite advice to give clients to help you create that identity change. Now, be mindful. I've worked with professional athletes, senior leaders at Fortune 1000 companies. I can't give you how short that list is, because then I could potentially identify who those people are. Many of my one-on-one clients certainly are high performers, professional athletes, professional musicians, senior leaders in corporations, senior leaders in government at highest levels, right? Some of the highest levels. Here's the advice I love to give them, and this advice has the greatest chance of creating identity change, and that advice is lower the bar. Lower the bar. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Here's what typically happens. Somebody hits rock bottom, and I'm going to run 2 miles a day. I'm going to never look at porn again. I'm never going to be rude to my wife. They make all these goals that, quite frankly, are ridiculously unattainable. And what happens is, and this is what happens with every New Year's resolution, so you know what I'm talking about, right? You set big goals for yourself, which are great. I love big goals. The problem is that most of the big goals that people set are not attainable. They do not have the systems in place to accomplish those goals. So the best way to build those systems that are to accomplish those goals is to lower the bar. So for example, here are a couple of examples of lowering the bar. I have clients that struggle with mindfulness, sitting, meditating, focusing. It is ridiculously difficult. 1 minute a day, 10 breaths at a time. You might think people are paying for that advice. Yes, because my goal with clients is sustainability. Anybody can do a dog and a pony show, put you in a program, work on some of that deeper emotional stuff, what's important. But if you haven't learned anything about sustainability or systems or self-esteem or the 3 layers of change or habits or accountability or community or connection, parts work, like, you're stuck. Right? You are not going to be successful because you do not have the systems in place to accomplish those amazing goals that you know you're capable of, and I know they're capable of. I believe in you. I'm telling you to start slow. Lower the bar. You can't beat your addiction if you're not taking care of your body. If you are not eating well, sleeping well, hydrating, exercising, and practicing mindfulness, there is no possible way that you ever are going to not turn to your coping strategy. That's what this is, right? All behavior is need-seeking behavior. Your acting out is meeting important needs, and if you don't meet those needs proactively, they're going to get met reactively. Remember that. Needs get met proactively, intentionally, mindfully, or they get met reactively, mindlessly, automatically, instantaneously. But when you set for yourself, and here's what they call these kinds of goals so you can look it up, they're called Kaizen goals, Kaizen. Kaizen goals, small, attainable. That's what Kaizen goals are for. Kaizen goals has changed manufacturing, has changed high performance, and I want to prove it to you. Here's the second mandatory reading that I recommend to clients, and that is One Small Step Can Change Your Life by Dr. Robert Maurer. I'm going to say that title again. It is a short and quick and easy read. The Audible version is even better because it's got a chapter on relationship issues, which if you're listening to this, you probably need help with. Get the book. Get the book, because you can't read that book and say, this is stupid. Right? Because that's the first reaction I had to Kaizen goals. Are you shitting me? I'm a high achiever, baby. Let's go. Go big or go home. And so many of us have been taught that ideology, that belief system. And we think that anything less than perfect is not good enough. Right? You're watching this because of that deep, innate part of you inside you that says you're not good enough. How do you become good enough? By regularly and routinely, over and over and over, accomplishing the goals that you set for yourself. If anybody knows the acronym for SMART goals are goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to your overall strategic objective, and time-bound. There's a deadline. Kaizen goals flips the script on that attainability. In fact, in the book, One Small Step Can Change Your Life, Dr. Robert Maurer defines Kaizen goals. Listen to the phrase he uses. I love this phrase. Kaizen goals are ridiculously attainable goals. Ridiculously attainable. And I know for some of you, this advice might sound a little strange, but when you get into the high performance space and you work, let's say I've worked with clients who coach Olympic athletes, who coach professional athletes. Kaizen goals are critical. These guys are at the top of their game. These small improvements, a fraction of a second in speed, a fraction of a second in cutting, or a little bit more distance on the pass. Like, these little goals are critical for high performers, and they are critical for you. So that is one of the best pieces of advice I love to give clients. They come to me struggling. They're hitting their head up against a wall. They can't accomplish the goals that they want to accomplish for themselves because we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. And by the way, this is chapter 1 and 2 of Atomic Habits. 3 layers of change: identity change, and this notion that we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. Make sure you like and subscribe, because in a podcast I have coming up, we're going to be addressing what specific systems are necessary to create, not just create and sustain healthy sexuality in a great life. This is going to be a short podcast. Let me give you the third piece of advice. Be kind to yourself. Here is a critically important principle, a message that I have for all you shamers out there. All of you taking the shame-based approach. You beat yourself up when you fail. You kick yourself when you down. Let me ask you that question. When you're beating yourself up, calling yourself a piece of shit, a loser for failing, right? What if you applied that same mentality in business? Many of the people listening to this are successful. They have some leadership experience. What if you led your team from that perspective? How about this? How would you feel if your children were talking to themselves in their head like that? Right? You'd want to do something about it. You know it's not healthy. Here is a critically important lesson. You will always lose in a fight against yourself. Think about a physical fight, right? Punching yourself in the face doesn't do anything for you, makes you worse, bloodies you up, makes you feel like a piece of crap, right? So what do you do about that? What you do is you be kind to yourself, okay? You don't beat yourself up when you're failing. You fall down and you get back up. Now, how to do that is multiple podcasts in and of themselves, and we're going to talk about that in 2025. It requires you to realize, first of all, you're not your thoughts, right? You're not. You can choose what thoughts to attach to. That's a very, very important lesson, right? But what happens, right? We have a positive thought, we reject it. We have a negative thought, we attach to it. Why? Because 4 of our 5 primary emotions are negative. That attachment was critical from a survival perspective way back when our ancestors were out on the plains running away from lions and buffalo. We have to focus on the negative. It kept us alive. And it doesn't mean you don't manage risk. It doesn't mean that it certainly means that you are mindful of your negative thoughts. Our thoughts frame our reality. You have to stop fighting with yourself. And the further along you get in recovery, the more you learn about parts work. You learn from a neuroscience perspective. Number one, there is no such thing as bad habits. And according to Dr. Richard Schwartz, the founder of the revolutionary internal family systems model, which in its various forms will be a gold standard of psychotherapy and treatment and high performance in the next 10 years. I guarantee it, because it is a neurologically sound model. The Pixar movie Inside Out was based on the reality that inside us we have these different parts. Anger, liar, not good enough, shame, shutdown, defensive, fuck it guy, right? So we have these parts inside us. You are not going to beat them into some submission. You are not going to shame them into compliance. Think about this from a business perspective. Now, I come from a big business background. I've worked for a number of billion-dollar companies at executive levels, and I've worked in compliance, right? You can't shame people into compliance. When you do that, what happens? They stop sharing with you their problems. They know that they're going to get in trouble. Instead of it being a learning opportunity, they know that they're going to get punished. And what happens when they know they're going to get punished? They hide their mistakes, and that creates a regulatory risk. The same rules apply personally. You have to learn how to be kind to yourself. You have to learn to treat yourself the way you want your children to treat themselves, the way you want your grandchildren. I know we got a couple grandfathers watching. The way you want your grandchildren to treat themselves. Shame does not drive compliance. Shame makes it worse. So we're going to talk about the different ways that you can change your relationship with your thoughts, and go back and check out some of my podcasts on parts work, on the habit cycle, on thought management, and we're going to cover those issues again in 2025. But let me recap really quick what we learned today. We learned that according to Atomic Habits, there are 3 levels of change. Sobriety, outcome change is the first level of change. The second level of change is process change. These are the things you do to accomplish the outcome, but that's not enough. You need identity change. I don't do that anymore. I am my wife's protector. You don't feel like a little boy, you feel like a man trying to make her feel safe because she's so dysregulated and so hurt by your behavior. Okay? How do we accomplish identity change? One way is to create an environment where you are accomplishing your goals. Unfortunately, most people set goals that are too ambitious. They're not attainable. Kaizen goals turns the attainability component on its head, and it asks you to regularly accomplish ridiculously attainable goals. And over time, that not only allows you to identify the systemic issues getting in the way of you accomplishing their goals, right? You lack accountability, you lack community, your life's a mess, the goals just aren't attainable. When you set them small, you're able to see those roadblocks, right? And if you can't hit that goal, you lower it again. You lower it again, you lower it again, and eventually the block is staring you right in the face. And that's why the parts work is so important, that internal resistance that so many of us men have to structure and discipline, even though we may know from a business perspective without it, there's abject chaos and failure. We need it. We absolutely need it. And the final piece of advice that I gave you is be kind to yourself. You will always lose in a fight against yourself. Now, it's 2025. Some of you are looking for help. Please visit mindfulhabithelp.com. We've changed the pricing structure of our core training program. It is 7-day free trial, $99 per month after that. Okay, so if you need help, check out the core training program. So life is too short to suck. I live by that mantra. It just is, right? Let's learn, let's grow, let's solve these problems together. Thanks for watching. Embrace your power of choice. Feed the right wolf inside you and lead your pack internally and externally. That's what self-leadership is, and that's going to be another podcast topic for us later on this year. If you need help, visit mindfulhabithelp.com. Thank you for listening. Make it great. Talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye.